Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one, obviously, being the poetry discussion playlist. Number two, being the Charles Bukowski playlist. Both of these playlists growing greatly this year, but also, real quick, look, I'm going short story by short story through the Fincavigia edition of Ernest Hemingway, all probably year long. It's going to take me a while to get through all of those, but you are welcome to that playlist as well. Also, Dubliners by James Joyce. We're going poem by poem through Sylvia Plath here on the channel. On Fridays, I have now a, what do they call them? Podcast on this platform called The Weekly Reader, where I ask big questions about literature and offer meager answers, therefore. Now, if you enjoy what I do here or you appreciate it, hitting the like button really does me a lot of good on the channel, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel. Poetry every Mondays, but also, like I said, short stories and novels as well. We are here for the poem from Charles Bukowski called What Can We Do? It reads as such. At their best, there is a gentleness in humanity, some understanding, and, at times, acts of courage. But all in all, it is a mass, a glob that doesn't have too much. It is like a large animal deep in sleep, and almost nothing can awaken it. When activated, it's best at brutality, selfishness, unjust judgments, murder. What can we do with it, this humanity? Nothing. Avoid the thing as much as possible. Treat it as you would anything poisonous, vicious, and mindless. But be careful. It has enacted laws to protect itself from you. It can kill you without cause. And to escape it, you must be subtle. Few escape. It's up to you to figure a plan. I have met nobody who has escaped. I have met some of the great and famous, but they have not escaped, for they are only great and famous within humanity. I have not escaped, but I have not failed in trying again and again. Before my death, I hope to obtain my life. Ah, Charles Bukowski, a man who speaks to my own soul, a man who speaks to my own ethos, pathos, and logos, a man who is speaking for me, represents my life interests, escaping from humanity. But you know, it's strange. Humanity being a collection of animals, we're just animals. Even if you believe in divine creation, you have to admit we are animals. If you believe in divine creation, God created us from the same stuffs as animals. Meaning, maybe, according to your beliefs, we have a higher precedent in creation, but we are still part of creation. Some animals are herd animals. Some animals do not have that compulsion. You look at wolverines, they live mostly on their own, right? There are plenty of examples in nature of animals who live more or less isolated lives. But humankind contains individuals of both of those stripes. Now, maybe you have seen, what is it? I don't remember what documentary it is, but there's a documentary on penguins. And some penguin in this documentary, something gets crossed in its brain, and it wanders off in the opposite direction from all of the other penguins. where it will face its extinction. It will be extinguished. And the documentary goes on to say that sometimes this just happens with penguins. They don't understand it, but some wire somewhere gets crossed and they wander off to die. There is a large, I don't know if this is an old wives' tale or what, but that dogs go off on their own to die. Humans are pack animals, but some of us are not. Some of us really do prefer the individuality that can be obtained in life. Now, Bukowski here does still make it sound like that is something of a terminal condition. After all, despite the fact that he is, our speaker, I should say, our speaker, not necessarily Bukowski, our speaker is attempting to live life on his own, but he doesn't know anyone else who's done that. Now, there is some irony therein. If you are truly living on your own, how would anyone else know you? But still, it means that this reward, perhaps, to the individual is exceedingly rare, meaning that however many of us have this compulsion to wander off in the opposite direction from the pack, maybe that is terminal, just like it is for the lonely penguin. But still, it happens. There are still those of us for whom that compulsion is necessary. But as this is a poem, and what poetry does is it opens all of us up and digs around inside us a bit to find the very same parts, perhaps in different proportion. I suggest that this compulsion towards loneliness is more universal than we would let on. And on the opposite end, that the compulsion towards the pack is more universal than even us loners would care to admit. These things both exist within all of us, but not in equal measure. Still, I think that the compulsion towards isolation, the compulsion away from the pack, is not only more difficult to obtain, it's also frowned upon. It's also frowned upon. So that when people who are pack animals feel this same compulsion, they are shamed out of it. Now, what if we lived in a world where that shaming mechanism didn't exist so wholeheartedly towards individuation? Towards something closer to self-realization, to self-maximalization? Is the shaming of that perhaps desire for loneliness, is the shaming of that part of humanities, with the capital H as Bukowski uses it here, is the shaming of that mechanism in the individual by humanity part of what help? Is that a defense mechanism? Is that something like in our body, certain things destroy free radicals? Free radicals being portions of cell, from my understanding, again, I'm no medical expert, but portions of cells that sort of go off on their own and wreck things throughout our body. There are vitamins necessary to destroy free radicals. Otherwise, this element of what it means to be alive, the free radical roaming through our body, will tear us apart small bit by small bit. Is this shaming mechanism similar to those things which destroy free radicals inside our bodies? Ontogeny recapitulating phylogeny on a different type of level. Is it that if we all explored these desires to be alone, these desires, I dare say, for loneliness, something which does help complete the human experience, does the desire for the larger organism of humanity with the capital H to eradicate that thing, to shame that thing into submission, is that what makes us able to survive in the way that we do? Could there be a baser element in the human experience, which is ultimately the desire for lonerdom, for loneliness? And if that element were fully explored and realized and actualized, society would crumble. How many of us are perfectly happy in our jobs? Our jobs are one of the primary agents of socialization that we will face in life. How many people do you see more often than the people with whom you work directly? For me, it's no one. For me, it is no one. I see the people at work more than I see anyone. If I had the tools necessary to be self-sufficient, perhaps in the wild, would I still see those people? And not just me, so many of us. How many of you, how often have you, dare I say, because I'm going to assume that you have had this feeling, how often have you had the feeling, you know what, I don't want to come back here? You're standing at work, your least favorite coworker is right there talking about something that you don't care about, but because you were in part of this uh, milieu that is humanity, you have to pretend to care. You're not listening. You're watching his mouth move and he's, gesturing, and you got to nod along, and part of you is already asleep. Part of you never woke up, leaving up roughly half of you that is present, but even the present part of you isn't there. The present part of you is projected off some other place. There's some astral projection going on in your soul that puts you someplace else. While this idiot just keeps talking and just keeps talking, how often have you in that situation decided, I'm just going to punch him in the face and leave? I'm not coming back. I'm just going to punch this guy in his face and move on. I'll move to the woods. I'll build a cabin. I'll sleep with the mouses, the field mouses, and the birds. I don't care. I'll just do it. The floor will be mud. The roof will be thatch. And everything in between will be what I have created on my own. And if I had those tools, I would do it. How many of us have those tools? Obviously, not a lot. You can find most of those people, ironically, on YouTube sharing those tools with the rest of us. Very fascinating channels if you haven't fallen down into that rabbit hole yet on YouTube. Survivalists, people going off in the nature. And there's one very prominent one I can't remember off the top of my head. I haven't watched very much from him, but he just makes shelters out of mud and wood and thatch and limbs. That's what he does over and over again on YouTube. But does the societal mechanism that imposes shame upon us for those feelings, does that work on most of us? Is that the reason we keep showing up to work and listening to that idiot drone on? I think probably. And I think that is exactly what it is that Bukowski is talking about in this poem. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you enjoy or appreciate what I do on this channel, hitting the like button helps me out immensely. It tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, I talk about poetry every Monday on the channel. I'm currently going through Ernest Hemingway's Fincavigia edition, short story by short story, Dubliners by James Joyce, short story by short story, and Sylvia Plath's poetry poem by poem, in addition to other things here on the channel. And if you do find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button because I would love to have you back for the next one.